Today is the day that Gold and Blue Dude goes up against Athlon in our preseason conference ranking predictions. Time to pick a side. Let's go. Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's me again, Gold and Blue Dude. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. I do college football videos every single day. That's what I do. Don't forget to check out my good friends at Tri-State Wood Sketch. He does amazing work. He can put any picture onto a piece of wood. All you have to do is send him the picture that you want on the wood, and he'll make a beautiful piece of art. Check him out at tristatewoodsketch.com. Tell him that Gold and Blue Dude sent you, and he'll give you 20% off. Today, I'm going head-to-head with Athlon, and you're going to have to pick a side. Whose conference ranking predictions do you like better? First, we'll start off with the group of 5. We'll start off with the MAC. First division, the East Division. Here's how they finished last year. Buffalo, then Kent State, then Ohio, then Miami of Ohio, then Akron, then Bowling Green. Here's Athlon's prediction for the East for the MAC. Buffalo, then Ohio, then Kent State, Miami of Ohio, then Akron, then Bowling Green. Here's how I predict the MAC East to go. Number 1, Ohio. They're going to be a pretty good team this year. I think they win the East. Then Buffalo. They're still going to be a good team. Kent State's going to be a good team, but I have them in 3rd. Then Akron, then Miami of Ohio, then Bowling Green. Bowling Green's just going to be a terrible team. Now time for the MAC West. Last year, Ball State, then Western Michigan, then Toledo, then Central Michigan, then Eastern Michigan, then Northern Illinois. Here's Athlon's prediction for the MAC West. Toledo, then Ball State, then Western Michigan, then Central Michigan, then Eastern Michigan, then Northern Illinois. Here's my prediction for the MAC West. I actually have Western Michigan winning the MAC West. This is an underrated team, and they're going to make some noise this year. Then Ball State, I think they stay strong. Toledo will be good, but I have them in 3rd. Then Eastern Michigan, then Central Michigan, then Northern Illinois. Next up, Conference USA. First, the East Division. Here's how they finished last year. Marshall at the top, FAU, then Western Kentucky, then Charlotte, then Middle Tennessee, then FIU. Old Dominion did not play. Here's how Athlon has the Conference USA East standings. They still have Marshall winning it again. Then FAU, then Western Kentucky, then Charlotte, then Middle Tennessee, then FIU. Here's how I have Conference USA, the East Division, panning out. I think Western Kentucky wins the East Division. They're going to be a pretty good team. Then Marshall, still going to be good, but I don't think they win the East. After that, Charlotte, and FAU, and FIU, Old Dominion, and Middle Tennessee. Now for the West Division. Last year's rankings. UAB won the West, then UTSA, then Louisiana Tech, then North Texas, then Rice, then Southern Miss, then UTEP. Here's how Athlon has Conference USA, the West Division, panning out. Once again, they have UAB winning the West, then UTSA, then Louisiana Tech, then Southern Miss, then North Texas, then Rice, then UTEP. Here's how I have Conference USA, the West Division, panning out. I think UTSA wins it. I think they make a move and they win the West this year. Then UAB. So they're still going to be good, but I don't think they win the West this year. After that, North Texas, then Louisiana Tech, then UTEP, then Rice, then Southern Miss. Southern Miss is a train wreck right now. They have no direction. They got a new coach in the middle of the season last year because of some crazy circumstances. So yeah, I have them dead last. Next up, the Mountain West. Last year they didn't have divisions, so this is just straight up rankings from last year. In first place was San Jose State, then Boise State, then Nevada, then San Diego State, then Hawaii, then Fresno State, then Air Force, then Wyoming, then New Mexico, then Colorado State, then Utah State, then UNLV. This year, the divisions are back. Here's how Athlon has the Mountain Division. Number 1, Boise State, then Wyoming, then Air Force, then Colorado State, then New Mexico, and then Utah State. Here's how Gold and Blue Dude has the Mountain West Mountain Division going. I agree with Athlon. I think Boise State wins the Mountain Division. Then Wyoming, then Air Force, then New Mexico, then Colorado State, then Utah State. Now for the West Division. Here's Athlon's rankings. Number 1, Nevada, then San Jose State, then Fresno State, then San Diego State, then Hawaii, then UNLV. Here's how I have the Mountain West Division panning out. I think San Jose State wins it. I think they're a pretty good team, and the West Division will be the stronger division by far. In second place, I actually have San Diego State. I think they make a jump this year. Then Nevada. Nevada's still going to be a good team, though. Then Fresno State, then Hawaii, then UNLV. Next up, the Sun Belt. Here's how they finished last year. In the East Division, number 1, Coastal Carolina, Appalachian State, then Georgia State, then Georgia Southern, then Troy. Here's how Athlon has the Sun Belt East Division panning out. They have Coastal Carolina winning it again, then Appalachian State, then Georgia State, then Troy, then Georgia Southern. Here's how I have the East Division of the Sun Belt. I agree with Athlon on this one. I think Coastal Carolina wins the East, then Appalachian State, then Georgia Southern. I think they'll be a better team. Then Georgia State and Troy. Here's how the West Division looked last year. Louisiana won the West, then South Alabama, then Texas State, then Arkansas State, then UL Monroe. Here's how Athlon has the West panning out for the Sun Belt. They have Louisiana winning it once again. Then Arkansas State. That's a weird choice right there. Then Texas State. Then South Alabama. Then UL Monroe. Here's how I have the West panning out. I also have Louisiana winning the West. And the West is by far the weaker division here. But I have Texas State finishing second place. Then Arkansas State. Then South Alabama. Then UL Monroe. Now the AAC. The AAC doesn't have any divisions. Here's how it finished last year. Cincinnati won the AAC. Then Tulsa, Memphis, UCF, SMU, Houston, Navy, Tulane, East Carolina, Temple, and USF. Here's how Athlon has the AAC panning out in 2021. They do have Cincinnati winning the AAC. After that, UCF, Houston, Tulsa, SMU, Tulane, Memphis. I do not agree with that one at all. East Carolina, Navy, USF, and Temple. Here's how I have the AAC panning out this year. I do have Cincinnati winning it, so I agree there. But right behind them, I have Memphis. I think Athlon has Memphis way too low in the AAC this year. After that, UCF, they are going to be a good team. Then Houston, then Tulane, then Tulsa, SMU, Navy, Temple, USF, and East Carolina. And now the independents. Technically, this is not a conference, but these are teams that are not in a conference. Here's how they finished last year as far as records go. BYU, the best record in the independents. Then Liberty, Army, New Mexico State, UMass, and UConn. UConn didn't play, but they are an independent. I didn't include Notre Dame because they played in the ACC last year, but I will include them in the independence ranking for this year. Here's how Athlon has the independents panning out according to their record. According to Athlon, the best independent this year will be Notre Dame. After that, Liberty, then BYU, then Army, then UMass, then UConn, then New Mexico State. Here's my rankings for the independents. I think Liberty will have the best record out of the independents. After that, Notre Dame, then Army, then BYU. Yes, I think BYU slides down just a little bit. Then UConn, then UMass, then New Mexico State. Now we're getting into the Power Fives. This is where it gets really interesting. First up, the Pac-12. We'll start with the South Division. Here are the South Division rankings from last year. USC won the South, then Colorado, then Utah, then Arizona State, then UCLA, and Arizona. Here's Athlon's rankings for the Pac-12 South for 2021. Number 1, Arizona State. This is a very interesting choice. After that, USC, then Utah, then UCLA, then Colorado, then Arizona. Here's how I'm going to rank the South. I still think USC wins the South. Right behind them, Utah. I think Utah is going to have a tremendous season this year. Then Arizona State. But because I have Arizona State finishing third does not mean that I don't think they'll have a great season. But with this turbulent offseason, I'm not as confident as I was in the Sun Devils. After Arizona State, I have UCLA, then Colorado. I have them falling big time, and then Arizona. Now for the Pac-12 North. Here are the final rankings for the Pac-12 North for 2020. Washington, then Oregon, Stanford, Oregon State, Washington State, then Cal. Here's Athlon's final rankings for the Pac-12 North, meaning how they think it'll turn out. They think Oregon will win the North. That's a fair choice. Then Washington, then Cal, then Stanford, Washington State, and Oregon State. Here's how I think the Pac-12 North will turn out. I think Washington wins the North again, then Oregon. That's going to be a big-time battle between those two teams. After that, Stanford. I think Stanford is a better team than people give them credit for. Then Cal. I do think they will be improved this year. Then Oregon State, then Washington State. Now time for the Big 12 rankings comparisons. Here's how the Big 12 finished last year. According to records, Iowa State finished first, then Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State, Texas, TCU, West Virginia, Kansas State, Texas Tech, Baylor, then Kansas. Here's Athlon's final rankings for the Big 12 for 2021. Their prediction. Number 1, Oklahoma. Good choice. Then Iowa State, then Texas, then TCU, then Oklahoma State, then West Virginia, Kansas State, then Baylor, then Texas Tech, and then Kansas. Here's my predictions for the final rankings of the Big 12 for this year. I agree with Athlon. I think Oklahoma will win the Big 12. Then Iowa State. Number 3 is where we start to disagree a lot. I think TCU is going to be number 3. Then West Virginia, then Texas, then Kansas State, then Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State takes a big fall this year. Then Baylor, then Texas Tech, and then Kansas. Now time for the ACC. Now last year, they didn't have any divisions. Here was the final rankings. Number 1, Clemson, then Notre Dame, then Miami of Florida, then North Carolina, NC State, Boston College, Pitt, Virginia Tech, Virginia, Wake Forest, Georgia Tech, Louisville, Florida State, Duke, and Syracuse. This year, we are back to divisions. Here's Athlon's prediction for the ACC Atlantic. Number 1, of course, Clemson. Then NC State, Boston College, Florida State, Louisville, Wake Forest, and Syracuse. Here's my prediction for the ACC Atlantic. I agree with them. Clemson, number 1. I also agree with number 2, NC State. But for number 3, I have Florida State. I think they're going to be even better than Athlon thinks they're going to be. After that, Boston College. They are going to be solid this year. Then Louisville, then Wake Forest, and then Syracuse. Now time for the Coastal Division. First, Athlon's prediction. Number 1, North Carolina. Then Miami of Florida, Virginia Tech, Pitt, Virginia, Georgia Tech, and Duke. Here's my prediction for the Coastal. I agree with them. North Carolina number 1. I also agree with Miami for number 2. Here's where we start to disagree. I think number 3 will be Pitt. Then Virginia. They're going to be much better this year. Then Georgia Tech, then Virginia Tech. I think Athlon has Virginia Tech way too high at number 3. And then Duke. We're almost done, guys, but next up is the Big Ten. Here's how the East Division finished last year. Number 1, Ohio State, and a surprising Indiana at number 2. Then Penn State, then Maryland, then Rutgers, then Michigan. Terrible season for Michigan. And then Michigan State. Here's how Athlon has the Big Ten East finishing out. Number 1, Ohio State, then Penn State, then Indiana, then Michigan, then Maryland, Rutgers, Michigan State. Here's how I have the Big Ten East turning out to be. Number 1, I agree with Athlon. Ohio State will win the East. Number 2, agree again, Penn State. Number 3, Michigan. Yes, I think Michigan takes a bigger jump than Athlon is saying they're going. After Michigan is Indiana. I do think Indiana slides. I think the regular number of games in the schedule will expose Indiana's depth, or lack thereof. After Indiana, we have Maryland, Rutgers, Michigan State. Now time for the West Division. Here's how it finished out last year. Northwestern won the West. Surprised many people. Then Iowa, Wisconsin had a letdown year. Minnesota, Nebraska, Purdue, and Illinois. Here's Athlon's prediction for the Big Ten West. Number 1, Wisconsin. 2, Iowa. 3, Minnesota. 4, Northwestern. 5, Nebraska. 6, Purdue, and 7, Illinois. Here's my prediction for the Big Ten West. I agree at the top. Number 1, Wisconsin. I also agree number 2, Iowa. But number 3, I have Purdue as a surprise team this year. I think they make some noise in the Big Ten West and scare some people. After Purdue, I have Minnesota, then Northwestern. I have Northwestern sliding quite a bit, but I still think they get to a bowl. Then Nebraska and Illinois. The last conference, of course, the SEC. First up, the East. Here's how it finished last year. Number 1, Florida. Florida won the East. In Georgia, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt. Here's Athlon's prediction for the SEC East. Number 1, Georgia. 2, Florida. 3, Missouri. 4, Kentucky. 5, Tennessee. 6, South Carolina, and 7, Vanderbilt. Here's how I see the SEC East turning out. Number 1, Georgia. I do agree with Athlon there. But number 2, I have Kentucky. I think Kentucky is a dangerous team this year, and they have a shot to get to 10 wins. After Kentucky, I have Missouri. I think they're going to be a solid team this year. After Missouri, Florida. I have Florida sliding quite a bit. I think I have them finishing like 7-5, getting to a bowl, but nowhere near as good as what they were last year. After Florida, I have South Carolina finishing above Tennessee. Right after South Carolina is Tennessee, then Vanderbilt. Now for the SEC West. Here's how it finished last year. Number 1, Alabama, of course. Then Texas A&M, Auburn, LSU, Ole Miss, Arkansas, then Mississippi State. So here's Athlon's prediction for the SEC West. Number 1, of course, Alabama. Then Texas A&M, LSU, Ole Miss, Auburn, Arkansas, then Mississippi State. That's not a bad prediction right there. Here's my prediction for the SEC West. Number 1, Alabama. I did go back and forth on this because I do think it's going to be close between Alabama and Texas A&M, but I'm sticking with the Tide. But right after them, nipping on their heels, is Texas A&M. Then Ole Miss. Yes, I think the Rebels make a move and they jump in the standings in the West. Then LSU, still going to be a solid team though. Then Arkansas, I think they make a little bit of a move. And the biggest faller in the SEC, I think, is going to be Auburn. I have them almost dead last, but not quite. That still belongs to Mississippi State. It's time to pick a side. Who do you think is closer to how it's actually going to turn out? That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.